Hi, I'm Eric Lenask in the TMC Newsroom, and today I wanted to draw your attention to a live event that we're having tomorrow here on TMC. For any of you who've ever had a conversation on an HD endpoint with somebody else on an HD endpoint, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say the difference is night and day between HD and standard def voice, let alone the conversations that we have via our cellular devices these days. So tomorrow, that's Wednesday, April 14th at 2 p.m., TMC is going to be hosting part 2 in a webinar series on HD voice. This session is going to be called Interconnecting HD Voice and Video, Options Galore. And I thought, what better way to introduce this subject than to talk to the moderator of that webinar, Doug Money, who's the editor-in-chief of HD Voice News and also a TMC Net columnist. So I've got Doug on the phone now. Doug, thanks for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure.
So this is actually part 2 in a series. Tell me a little bit about part 1 in this series, which I guess talked about the growth and the proliferation of HD voice.
Yeah, in part 1 of this series, which of course is archived on TMC's website, we went through laying out the groundwork as to where HD voice deployment is around the world today. There are a lot of things happening over in Europe, but more importantly, there are a lot of companies that are working at the enterprise level and service providers in North America that are starting to really ramp up in deploying HD voice for their customers.
So when we talk about the evolution and the proliferation of HD voice, really, I guess my understanding is the one thing that's standing in the way is the lack of interconnectivity between HD providers.
That's correct. Yeah, that the whole issue is being able to have service provider. Well, let me take a step back. What people want to do is dial a phone number. At the most fundamental level, they want to dial a phone number and not care where that phone number is. And if they can get HD voice from end to end, it just happens. Unfortunately, that's not the case today. What you've got is a bunch of HD voice islands, is a common term, where people have set up HD voice either at the service provider level or at the larger enterprise level, and they can make HD calls within that island, within that secure universe. But when it comes to making a call from one island to another island, those connections aren't there. And the reason why those connections aren't there is this whole issue of making a secure SIP connection between those two islands. And that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow, is the different ways that companies are working to link their islands together in order to have seamless HD voice from end to end and not have to worry about, it's Joe down the hall, I can make my call. No, it's the guy, it's the guy I'm dealing with across the country. People want to just dial the phone number, and if they can get HD voice on both ends, they get it, and they don't have to worry about the details.
Great,
so
thanks.
We're going to talk about that.
Sorry, Doug. Tell me, so who should be registered for this webinar?
Well, I would say that service providers and carriers should definitely be on this call, as well as large enterprises. The guys who are running these islands, they should all be on this call, because there are a number of different options for interconnecting HD voice islands, for lack of a better term. People can either do a peer-to-peer connection. They can set that up, but that doesn't really scale well. Or they can use a federated model, using a third-party service provider such as XConnect, or Cisco even has, I don't want to say a magical box, but Cisco has a box called the Intercompany Media Server that kind of does a hybrid relationship, does a peer-to-peer relationship between Cisco setups, so that people connect, so people can do HD phone calls and not have to worry about, the overhead of security and setting it up.
Great. So all you carriers, service providers, large enterprises out there looking to deploy HD voice, and for anyone else interested in the deployment of HD voice and the security requirements of HD to HD connectivity, join Doug along with Martin Davies, the Director of Technology at Dialogic, tomorrow, April 14th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. To register for the webinar, go to www.tmcnet.com/webinar. Hey, Doug, I look forward to the session tomorrow, and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Eric.